Welcome to the Defense and Aerospace Report. I'm Vaga Maradian here at the Paris Air Show at Le Bourget, this historic airfield outside the French capital. Our coverage here is sponsored by Bell and Leonardo DRS, and it's our absolute honor to be interviewing the Chief of the French Air Force, General Philippe Lavigne. Sir, thanks so much for your time. I know how you're one of the busiest people here at the show.
Yes, thank you very much. It's a real pleasure for me for you to be here, and good morning to everybody in Paris.
I want to start off. You were in Washington a little while ago. When you took office, you announced the plan vol, or your flight plan, for the future of the French Air Force. We're in an extraordinary time, great power competition, but at the same time, nations have got to mind counterinsurgency and counter-terror operations as well. You've said that you need a powerful, agile, bold, and connected force to confront an uncertain future. Talk to us about your vision of air power and what are the specific capabilities the French Air Force is going to need for the future.
Well, for the future, I think we need, and I think the future is already now. We need air superiority. We need operational superiority in order to face what we call the developing air forces and power in different states. Of course, we have to deal with the protection of our airspace, but and also the Baltics, for example, air policing. Of course, we need to continue to deal with the counterterrorism, but we need to take into account this new power, and especially the A2AD, and that means that we have to focus on what the first job of the Air Force is, to acquire and maintain the air superiority in order for everybody to do the job below. So for us is that, and we are, and you have seen yesterday the announce of the future combat air system, and it's a real project from now to 2040 and more.
That's absolutely right. I mean, it's a beautiful airplane, although that's just a representative model on that. And I want to talk about that in a little bit, because Major General Jean-Pascal Breton is the chief of the program on the French side. Talk to us a little bit about great power competition. That was something that the French Air Force during the Cold War was engaged in. Now Russia and China are both rising. There are concerns about both powers and their extraordinary capabilities they're developing, as you said, anti-access area denial capabilities. How are you reinstilling this high-intensity combat ethos in the French Air Force? Because for the last 20 years, all of the nations in the alliance were participating in counterinsurgency and counter-terror operations in permissive airspace. How are you getting that real high-end combat thinking, combat ethos, and operational planning and readiness?
First of all, we are already taking this into account. For example, we've got the Rafale F3R, which is with the missile, the Meteor, which is a long stick missile. So for air-to-air, it's magic. It's a huge stick, and of course we are dealing with what we call multi-domain. We have to take into account these things. I know that in Red Flag, when you are briefing, you are beginning with cyber, with space, and then air. So we have to take this into account, and we are going to take this into account. Of course, you know that our president give us the job to think about the space defense strategy, and we have already done the job, and so we are waiting his announcement. And we are also and you have seen publish things on cyber, and either on defensive but also on offensive cyber. And so we are dealing with future combat air system for this anti-access denial matter into account, with of course, Rafale first, because we will have the Rafale F4, which will be the first step of this future combat air system, with more connectivity, more survivability. And then, of course, we will have into account with the special different equipment, aircraft like the Phoenix, the Highintensity. We will in 2025 it will be more connectivity, because we have to fight as a team. We will have also electromagnetic system in what we call the Archange, which is with the Falcon 8X, and so it will and we will have the replacement of AWACS at the end in 2035. So we are progressing. Of course, we've got also another thing is for the nuclear deterrence. We are upgrading this, of course, with missiles first, but after it will be of course the aircraft. So we are dealing with that from now to 2040.
France is a partner with the United Kingdom and the U.S. in an extraordinary and unique trilateral strategic air power alliance. And you guys wargame all kinds of scenarios. Some you can publicly discuss, others you can't. And one of the scenarios that come up is in Asia, and some of them do deal with China, and obviously that's a big focus. But all three of the nations are also Pacific powers. France has been in Asia for hundreds of years. Talk to us about how you think about a potential China or a broader Asia scenario in your operational planning, thinking, and preparations for the future.
First of all, as you said, France is a nation of this area, because we've got Polynesia, we've got New Caledonia, so we are part of that and of this area, and we are working a lot with Australia, with New Zealand, for example, in order to be ready for if there are natural catastrophe. So we are of course dealing with that. Last year we were in pitch black exercise, so we went there with a 3 Rafale and one A400M, and with a tanker, and then there were a tanker, Australian tanker, who joined us who joined up in EAU, and then going to pitch black. Then we have made Pegasus mission. Pegasus mission was a mission through Vietnam, Indonesia, Malaysia, and India, in order to say, hey, France are here. And during that, we participate in Indonesia. There was the terrible catastrophe, natural catastrophe in Lombok. So we had a flight for them with 25 tons of humanitarian goods, and so we say that we want to say that we are in this, and we can go of course and go back. We are going to participate to the next pitch black in 2020, and what I want to say with new Highintensity, we can have in 2023 we can project 20 Rafale with 8 Highintensity in less than 48 hours with all our technicians and spare parts, because Highintensity is like a Swiss knife. That's it.
It's an extraordinary airplane, and then that's the Airbus A330 multi-role, multi-mission tanker aircraft. Let's talk a little bit about the priorities for the United States, France, and Great Britain in this air power alliance. You guys have a very ambitious agenda of exercises, wargaming, and thinking you guys do to prepare for the future. What are some of the big items on your agenda this year?
Well, the big agenda. Well, I was the first French director. It was in 2015. I was in it was in Langley Air Force Base, and we have made a great exercise with the F-22s and the Typhoon and the Rafale. It was great. And so I said during this year in 2019, I want to try to continue to to work on interoperability, because we need interoperability. My motto is win as a team. So and my favorite sport is rugby. So we of course we have to be very strong individually, but we are nothing if we are not working as a team. So we are going to make exercise like point blank, which is in Scotland, with the UK with the F-35, and with US, of course, either F-15 or other aircraft, and I will put Rafale. And I told to Dave Golfin and Steve Illier that I will be very pleased to organize the next Twilight Atlantic Trident in France in 2020. So we need this interoperability. Of course, it's operational interoperability. Of course, we need also work, and there are the working groups on technical interoperability, because it's we have to exchange a lot of data, and of course, F-35, Eurofighter, and Rafale is going to be more and more connected, and more data will go through all this channel, and we need it. We need it. Of course, there are F-35 now in Italy. I spoke to Alberto Rosso, my counterpart, and we're going to plan exercise also. We need to work.
How long do you think it's going to be before you have that degree of interoperability with the F-35, given that all your allies are F-35 nations?
Well, we will have very quick, because as I say, we've got F-35 in UK. We have F-35 in Italy. So and we used to fly with them. So it's going to be very quick.
Let me go. They have a couple of modernization questions, but let me ask you about operational lessons. France was a key member of the Afghanistan alliance, a key part of the war against ISIS in Syria and in Iraq. You have Africa operations as well as air policing, as you mentioned, in the Baltics. So France has a worldwide footprint. You're constantly deriving new operational lessons, obviously how to deliver air power, for example, with greater precision, how to counter some of, as you said, the Russian or even potentially someday Chinese A2AD capabilities. What are some of the operational lessons learned that you're fusing into your future modes and concepts of operations?
Well, first of all, when you are talking about counterterrorism, and when you are talking about A2AD, it's it's the opportunity wars, what I call opportunities war. That means that the enemy is very quick. You don't see it. You don't see them, and then it appears, it acts, and then disappears. So you have to pick up. So you have to know where they are. You know you have to learn how they are working. So it takes a lot of time. So a lot of ISAR, for example, and for example and you need also to organize the air campaign in small area. For example, in Africa, what we have done with our Reapers and all our team is in Africa, is not at home, is in Africa, and so they can talk with the fighters, with the helicopters, with the tankers, with all the other ISAR, and they are like small AWACS, and they can pick up they know everything, and they can organize the small air campaign and reallocate the targets, etc. So it's, for us, it's something we have to think, and it's the beginning of course of this big combat cloud. We have to organize between ISR, between fighters, between tankers, and to give to the joint headquarters all the information, so they can manage the next campaigns. It's one big thing. We've got another lessons learned is of course the jamming, the GPS jamming. So we have also to focus on that and to be sure that we can go without GPS on. So I think that Galileo is also a good thing, because we can have two modes, and we have also to think about without GPS. That means that, for example, INS without GPS, or these sort of things. So we need to continue, and of course, when we are in Middle East, like you, it's like this A2AD it was like a small laboratory for air defense. So we learn a lot about that.
Do you remain confident? Russia has developed a lot of anti-access area denial systems. You got a taste of that, as you mentioned, in Syria. Is there anything the Russians are doing that intimidates you, or do you look at that situation and say that's something that we can deal with?
Yes, we can deal with. Because we've got the nuclear deterrence, we have to deal with it. So it's we are prepared for high intensity.
Let me take you to the notion of cloud combat. That's something that was a French innovation, and has become something that has gone around the world. You don't talk to people about battle management without combat cloud coming into it. And you mentioned using it in Africa, but in other operations that France has done worldwide. How are you advancing the concept? How are you developing it? And does this actually become kind of the foundational battle management system for coalition and allied operations in the future?
Well, we are working a lot with our industries, for example, with Thales or with Airbus and Dassault, and of course operational. We have put on the table a program. It's called Connect Aero, which is a roadmap, of technology, but first of operational needs, in the needs of what type of information we need at certain time. We are dealing also with artificial intelligence, big data, and it's very very important. And we are developing new ideas for the cockpit. What do we need? Like a small a small robot who can make the fusion of the information, and we are thinking about the new man-machine team. So
a little like the U.S. Air Force's Skyborg concept.
Exactly. The same thing. So we are working a lot with and we've got integrating team with operationals and industry. So it's the way we have taken for that.
Let me take you to, you said that the F4 is the bridge to SCAF in terms of better connectivity, better capability overall. I think other upgrades to the airplane as well. But what do you want out of SCAF? What are sort of the most important foundational requirements for that next generation airplane? Is it range? Is it payload? Is it radar cross-section? What are the attributes that you have said, hey, here are the 5 or 6 foundational elements that new jet has to have?
Yeah, so you are talking about the jet, but of course, as you know, that the future combat air system is more than a jet. Is remote carrier. It's ISR. It's a team. It's a collaborative combat team. So it's but dealing with the new jet, the new generation fighter, of course, for us, he has to take into account the nuclear deterrence, the air superiority, and of course all the French airspace protection and all. So the high intensity and the low intensity job. Of course, he has to be maneuverable. He has to be fast. He has to be a certain furtivity and stealthiness. So he has to, of course, to take into account the armaments. We are of course thinking about armaments we deal with, but why not other type of armament like I don't know the name. It's laser or this type of
directed energy weapons.
Directed energy missile. So it's we need to have more connectivity between the platform and the of course the this new jet, and this new jet has got to be able to take into account all the datas the others are going to bring him. Of course, he has to be connected with the remote carrier in order to give them the information. He has also to be able to launch armaments who are going to talk together in order to reattribute the targets. So it's connectivity. Connectivity is the key point, of course.
Let me ask you kind of a broader strategic question. For decades, military forces have been sized to almost an optimistic level. Right, in the last 20 years, we were in uncontested airspace and operating, and there were many people who were questioning, well, why do you need these kind of high-end combat forces anyway when you're fighting against guys in a counterinsurgency? But there were a group of folks who said, hey, look, you have to maintain these high-end skills because you may need them. If you look at the history of warfare, even the very best airplanes manned by the best crews end up being lost in very, very large numbers, whether it was in the Vietnam War or World War II. And if you look at the air power future we're going into, it's probably the most dangerous it's been in decades, certainly since the Cold War. How do politicians, the public, need to think about what a high-intensity air war looks like, whether it's in Europe, whether it's in Asia, and whether or not you even have sufficient numbers of airplanes and people if you may lose a squadron a day, for example, in certain high-intensity situations?
You're right. You're totally right. After the point of air superiority, we need a certain number of assets. We need a certain number of assets, of course, of fighters, but also of all the equipment we need around. I think it's something we have to deal. It's what we call it's more than air power advocacy, because what I say is that if you don't have this, it was Montgomery who said that in 43. If you lose the war in the air, you will lose the war very quick. So it's very, very important. So I think that we've got, as I say, we've got the operational credibility, we've got the political credibility because we are climbing to the 2% of GDP. So we have, as an Air Force, to talk about that, to tell about that. We need the numbers, and so we have to, of course, to benchmark between our Air Forces, but we need to explain with scenarios. I think it's scenarios. It's and dealing with, it's not only counterterrorism, but it's now we've got this this Highintensity who can appear tomorrow. So we have to speak about that, and of course in doctrine, in strategy, and talk with our politicians and say, hey, and our parliamentary, we need numbers.
And but fortunately, you have a leadership that I think understands that. I mean, we heard Madame la Ministre in Washington, and she was very, very articulate about the kind of investment that France knows it has to make.
Yes, yeah, of course. It's when I arrive, I've got the feeling that we were taking the stick and we were pulling up. and the nose is up now. We've got throttle behind, and so and the sky is like today very sunny, and but we need to continue to work on that, either the number of assets, but one thing is very important in a matter of effect is the multi-domain. I repeat, multi-domain, of course, cyber, space, and air is going to be very joined in order to produce the best effect.
General Philippe Lavigne, who is the Chief of the French Air Force. Sir, it was an honor and pleasure. It's always good.
Pleasure.
It's always good to be in Paris at the air show talking air power with the French Air Chief. So, sir, it's an honor and pleasure. Thank you very much.
Thank you very much. Très bonne journée. Enjoy a lot.
Merci beaucoup.